Okay, today I'm visiting with Jessica Clark from Jessica Clark Law Group here in Phoenix. She's an estate planning attorney that I've known for a long time. I trust a lot. And today we're going to be talking about the different kinds of estate plans that work well for people and some advantages and disadvantages of those. So first, I'd like Jessica to introduce herself and tell us about you.
Yes, thanks, Don. My name is Jessica Clark, again from the Jessica Clark Law Group. We're an estate planning boutique law firm, and we're here in North Central Phoenix, but we cater to people all over Arizona and actually work with other practitioners in other states, which we'll talk about with the funding. So Jessica Clark Law Group, estate planning.
Nice to be with you today.
Thanks for having me.
So there's different kinds of estate planning approaches. There's trust plans. There's different kinds of plans that work a little differently. So tell us what the trust plan is and maybe some advantages of that plan.
Okay. So at Jessica Clark Law Group, we do both will-based planning and trust-based planning. And when we're talking about trusts for our practice, we're talking about revocable living trusts. There are other types of trusts, but we really are focused on revocable living trusts in terms of estate planning. And a revocable living trust functions to keep the assets out of probate. Okay, probate is the process of going through the courts and getting assets transferred so that they can legally be moved from whoever has passed away to the beneficiaries. So trust-based planning was very popular because if it's properly done, properly funded, and I'll talk to you about what that means, you can avoid probate. So if you don't own anything as an individual at your passing, you avoid the probate process, the court proceedings. Funding is taking assets that you own as an individual or as a couple and moving them into the trust. So for instance, a deed, you're going to transfer your home from you owning it as Don Larson to you owning it as Don Larson, the initial trustee of your revocable living trust. So that's really the main advantage of a revocable living trust. You can build in sub-trusts so that you don't have an 18-year-old getting an inheritance, for instance. You can set the ages and stages at when you want somebody to get something. You can set to a class of beneficiaries. There's a lot of different things you can do in terms of determining who you want to get your stuff and how you want them to get it. With trust-based planning, when you're talking about a couple, you're talking about a joint revocable living trust. So it would, for instance, be the Clark Family Trust with my husband and I as the initial trustees. And you're going to talk about, again, the goals of the client. At first death, does everything go to the spouse? And if so, how do you want them to get it, right? Outright or in a sub-trust? And then at second death, what do you want to have happen? Does it go to all your then living children, or does it go, all different forms? And we build in charitable giving. We at Jessica Clark Law Group, we encourage charitable giving, and we actually give a discount for people who give a significant amount to charity. But that's really, when we're talking about trust-based planning, we're talking about a revocable living trust.
Okay. And again, it's revocable, meaning changeable. If something happens later on, it's easy to fix it, modify
Absolutely.
things and all that.
Yes. So you have to remember, because it is revocable and you can change anything, you can access anything, so can creditors. So that's a common misconception. It is not asset protection at the first level. We can build in asset protection for other generations and beneficiaries, but that's getting a little bit into the weeds. It is revocable. You can change the distribution scheme. You can change successor trustees. You can take things out, put things in, as long as you have capacity.
Yep. And this is the most common one that I see in my financial planning practice. It's not the only approach. So you also do will-based planning.
We do.
So tell us about that.
Yeah, I'm proud to offer will-based planning. There's a lot of practitioners in Arizona and certainly in other states that are not as probate friendly that don't offer will-based planning. But will-based planning, you will still go through probate because you're not going to transfer the assets from you owning them either as an individual or as a couple. So you own them at your death. Anything you own at your death is going to go through probate. So that is known as kind of the disadvantage of will-based planning. But will-based planning is far superior to doing nothing because you will still be able to appoint your personal representative. That's the person who's actually going to be appointed from the court to be in charge of your assets, to marshal your assets, to protect them during the probate process, and then distribute them to your beneficiaries. So you can still determine who you want to get things and how you want them to get it. You can still build in sub-trusts within a will-based planning and things like that. And some people appreciate the public nature of the probate process. for court oversight if there is a contest, for instance. It is important to understand that in the probate process, there's a 4-month period where you have to alert creditors. You actually put this arbitrary or a advertisement in this arbitrary newspaper for 4 months saying, hey, creditors, this person passed away. If they owe you any money, now's the time to come get it. So that's not necessarily something that people look forward to, but that's a part of the probate process. So we do offer will-based planning, and it's the right device for a lot of people to at least have some planning in place.
Yeah, it sounds like that's a simpler approach to set it up and get started, at least have something in place.
Absolutely, because there's no funding involved. It's again far superior to doing nothing. And so at least they have something in place.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the main problems of today's society is we don't think ahead too much. So the purpose of an estate plan is to think ahead. How do you want things to happen? And put something in place that makes it happen the way you want to.
Yeah, and that's what we're always talking about. We don't have a crystal ball, right? You don't know when you're going to pass away, how much you're going to have, and what the estate tax might be, right, at that point in time. So we really pride ourselves on putting planning into place and then continuing to update it and checking in with our clients on an annual basis at a bare minimum to make sure that everything is the way that they still want it. You know, that everybody they've appointed is still in good favor, or, you know, they're living and things like that. So getting a plan in place is very, very important no matter how old you are, and then continuing to update it if necessary. Sometimes you don't need to, but at least checking in to make sure that it's the way that you want it to be.
Yeah, and that's one thing I love about your approach is updating it. So I've seen lots of people come into me with a trust that's 20 years old, never been updated, and they look at it and they say, oh, well, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. So it's very important to keep it updated as life changes.
Absolutely. And it's one of my favorite things. I offer complimentary initial consultations and also complimentary review of previous documents, and seeing the look on somebody's face when they say, oh my goodness, I can't believe that that's in place, or that's, you know, we've got clients that have outdated and ex-husbands, ex-wives, you know, whatever, as appointed at certain positions or receiving, you know, benefits that they no longer want those people to receive. So it's important to keep them updated, because we're not just doing document preparation, we're planning, truly planning, so that when things go wrong, you know, they have a plan in place.
Yep, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time today. This has been informative for me as well, and also for my clients who may be watching this video later on. So thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome, and we'll talk again some other time.
Can't wait.
Thanks, Jessica.
Thank you.